Is that good for our society? Interesting. Yeah, there's a war for non-sovereign bearer instrument store of value. And it's Bitcoin versus silver and gold. And gold's 10 trillion and Bitcoin is 1 trillion. And it's pretty clear that Bitcoin is winning, gold is losing. Of all the commodities in the world, the only one that isn't suffering from inflation in the last 12 months is gold. You want to eliminate inflation, build everything with 24 karat gold, it won't go up in price. Bitcoin's definitely winning that struggle, and it's going to continue because you can move $1 billion block of digital gold at the speed of light. You can program it 60 times a second, and the maintenance cost is much lower. The custodial rates are much higher. So it's pretty clear that digital gold is going to replace gold this decade. Incredible large heckloads of money. We've got history on our side. Bit by bit, every quarter, every year, more and more the world embraces this, the world opens up, and I think there's no doubt where the trend is going. The key is the base layer of Bitcoin is like the granite underlying Manhattan. $7.8 billion people are using toxic currency to store their value. What do we have more of? We have a lot more compute and memory. What do we have less of? We have less attention span and less patience. If you have a lot of software and the world relies on more software, then you have an advantage. So software-laden companies are being lifted, and unautomated companies, manual bricks and mortar companies, just keep getting hammered and hammered and hammered. You know, I'm not at all troubled with any of the regulation going on right now. The safe haven for institutions is to use Bitcoin as a store of value. Bitcoin's the only ethical, technical, and legal safe haven in the entire crypto ecosystem, right? It's more technically secure because of the ASICs and the proof of work mining. It's more politically secure because of the support for the miners by the politicians in every jurisdiction. It's more ethically secure because it is universally acknowledged as common property. So if your use case is to buy $1 billion of Bitcoin and hold it forever in lieu of gold or in lieu of property or in lieu of a stock portfolio, without all the risks of stocks and equities and bonds and all the headaches of precious metals, then Bitcoin meets that use case. All of the sound and fury in Washington is going to have an impact on security tokens, DeFi exchanges, crypto exchanges, all the other use cases of crypto that are not Bitcoin, and that's where we'll see all of this settle, and that's why there's volatility right now. How do I make the computer work 100 times harder? Well, how do I make the computer work 100,000 times harder? Right? How do I build something which is going to think and then do, before you ask it to do something, what you should ask it to do if you were sophisticated enough to know to ask? Everything that humanity's done in the history of the human race is predicated upon those space-time constants being what they were
And when you decide to routinely change them, you're playing God.
There are guys that they now do live chess commentary. So I want to paint this picture for you. That, 2 world champion chess players will watch a game which is going to take 4 hours, where the players are moving every 10 minutes. And for that 9 hours, they will give you a color commentary. Now, think about how many thousands and thousands of hours of chess video you could watch. And think about what you would accomplish in the year during which you watch that, because there's 10 to the 120 different chess games out there. You could watch it 5,000 hours a year for the next 50 years and you won't get through 1%. It's just frightening, horrifyingly, terrifyingly entertaining, right? However you think about it. You really want to think, what does that mean to you?
So ultimately, the Bitcoin price will be volatile. I watch it, if a decade from now it didn't go up, it won't have been the best strategy, but what it does day to day, week to week, month to month, even year to year isn't really that relevant. We have a long-term strategy here. The mobile payment space is particularly promising because all these mobile applications are one step removed from being mobile banks. And there's no reason why, Facebook and Apple and Google and the like don't eventually become mobile banks. It's like, it was a matter of time before they let you send photos. And then at some point they decided to let you send videos. And then they decided to give you emojis. And then they decided they'd let you send audio files. And in a way, you could think of Bitcoin, as just another file type. Right? Bitcoin's a bank in cyberspace. You're going to diversify out of that. Our strategy is to acquire and hold Bitcoin. We're a property development company, almost like a cyber REIT. You're going to describe inflation. You can't describe inflation with a single number.
What happens in a world where half of everything of consequence or value on the face of the earth becomes software?
You want to make a lot of money? There's 2 ways to make a lot of money. One way is you take something you have huge conviction on and you leverage it. Like I'm levered long Bitcoin, right? I had 250 million capital. I currently have 6.2 billion position, okay? My bet is $6.2 billion. How did I get from 250 million to 6.2 billion? That's like laser-like focus, like all the Bitcoiners, we got laser eyes. The point of laser eyes is focus on how you can get more Bitcoin, okay? There's another way. You can go and buy another coin that might go up by a factor of 100 without leverage. But then you're trying to pick which of 100, or you could pick a stock. So now you're trading. Google was a good play over the last 12 months. It's up 80%. Amazon looks like it would have been good. It's been a disaster. Okay, so who would have guessed that Google was going to destroy Amazon 12 months ago? And will they keep doing it quarter after quarter? So that's a different thing. It's not for us, right? I mean, I'm more interested in how do you borrow $1 billion for 0% interest? I'm not giving you the money. The best thing to do is if you're not gonna hold it for 4 years, don't buy it at all. Because if you're thinking shorter than 4 years, you're kind of more either a trader or a speculator. The best period is forever, and if you can't be forever, look out 10 years, and then you won't have the anxiety. Because what you're going to see is $200 trillion of money drain out of land and stocks and bonds and currency and collectibles. And when we demonetize $400 trillion worth of property and half of it flows out, and it's just like we took the information out of the books and libraries, we took the music out of the orchestras and the pianos and the CDs. What happens when we take the money out of the property and we put it into the Bitcoin blockchain, and then we hand that to technology companies to do with as they will? The right way to think is, again, it's electricity. Every business in the world didn't have electricity in 1900. And ask yourself the question, what happened to the companies that adopted electricity? And what happened to the ones that rejected electricity? When I saw digital property, I thought this is the next big thing. If you don't have a large asset portfolio, then you can't keep up with, you can't maintain purchasing power to buy the things you want in the future if those things are assets. And of course, they probably are. You probably want a nice house. You probably want cool things that are scarce. So this is why after the lockdown, it became very important to understand finance. You have to become much more financially sophisticated. And that's the only strategy. Look, I think Bitcoin is by far the highest upside, lowest risk, clearest choice, most compelling trade of the decade by far. Everything else would be dilutive. If you want to give music to 8 billion people, you got to give them digital music. And if you want to give education to 8 billion people, you need to give them digital books and digital education. And if you want to give wealth to 8 billion people, you need to give them digital property. So Bitcoin is profound in the same way that streaming music and YouTube is profound and iBooks is profound, except that those things I just named created trillion-dollar companies. Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple all became trillion-dollar companies because of digital books and digital education and digital music. Digital property is 100 times more important. And yet the myth of gold as immutable money, right, or the sovereign store of value, it stayed with us for thousands of years into the 20th century. I would say that the gold standard has been dying a slow death, a death by 1,000 cuts. 1914 comes along. You know, we've got the golden age from whatever 1870 to 1914, but then World War I comes along, and then in 1914, every country abandons the gold standard, and maybe that's the final cut.
We think that Bitcoin is the apex property of the human race. It's Cyber Manhattan. One day, 8 billion people may want to live there. There's only 21 million city blocks in Cyber Manhattan. They're not making any more. Nobody can make any more.
I think the single most important thing to understand about Bitcoin is the first decentralized, truly digital property in the history of the human race.
We just finished discussing the proof of work mining network and the 7 layers of security: energy, technology, politics, finance, the network itself, the spatial security, the temporal security. So what you have is you have Bitcoin as a decentralized crypto asset network. And the thing that pops up a lot is the question of, what does energy usage look like over time? And is energy usage going to keep increasing as the price of Bitcoin increases? And I've seen commentary on this. I think a lot of people get it wrong. They seem to think that as the price of Bitcoin increases, the energy usage will increase linearly. And if there's a 100x increase in Bitcoin price, there's a 100x increase in energy usage. And I think it's just worthwhile to make the observation that over the past 10 years, the mining network has gone from being energy intensive to being technology intensive. If I was Facebook and I wanted to clean up cyberspace and I agreed to let someone post 100,000 Satoshis in a Lightning wallet in order to get verified by Facebook,
And then that allowed people on Facebook to know that I was going to be civil and safe in my behavior. They might very well get 1 billion people to plug Lightning wallets into Facebook and deliver civility and safety in cyberspace for 1 billion people, and they would get rid of all the scammers, imposters, trolls, and eliminate hostility toward children and women, and shut down a whole set of scammy schemes that go on in the platform. So you can make your product better using something like Bitcoin and Lightning, right? I mean, Twitter just allowed you to tip using Lightning. That's a good thing. The ability for anybody on the planet to send $10 to anybody else on the planet, that's a product improvement. The Chivo wallet in El Salvador allowed 3 million people in El Salvador to set up a bank account in 3 weeks and get money for, with no remittance fee from anywhere in the world instantly at the speed of light. They were paying hundreds of millions of dollars a year in Western Union fees and wire transfer fees. So if you're using Bitcoin and Lightning in your product, you're probably making the product better. If you're just offering to sell your beach house for Bitcoin, all you're doing is marketing. I mean, nobody in their right mind would want to trade an asset going up 140% a year, for a liability. Like if you bought a Lambo with Bitcoin, you could have been like a billionaire 8 years later. So probably not a good idea to I wouldn't trade my Bitcoin for any asset, right? Name one other asset that's gone up 140% a year for a decade. And the answer is none. There's nothing. There is no stronger asset. There's no stronger trade. There's no higher quality property you could possibly own than pure digital energy. Pure digital energy, or pure digital property. It's better than the best stock. It's better than the best land. It's better than the best building. It's better than the best anything, really. And so a better idea, instead of selling it, would be pledge it as collateral for a loan. I have $1 million of Bitcoin. I borrow $100,000 at LIBOR plus 100 basis points, or LIBOR plus 500 basis points. I pay 5% interest. I buy the Lamborghini, and then the Bitcoin doubles and doubles and doubles. And in about 8 years, I have $1 billion, and I still have the Lamborghini. I think that if you want to characterize crypto universe, you have one thing, Bitcoin, which is the dominant $1 trillion crypto asset network. It's in essence, if God created gold in cyberspace, he would have created Bitcoin. It's gold in cyberspace, but it's got none of the liabilities and defects of gold. It's an encrypted block of sunlight. You can move it at the speed of light. You can program it with 1 million transactions a second. You can use it as the base layer for the 21st century economy. It's completely transparent. You can't make any more of it. It's capped at 21 million. You can take delivery of $1 billion of it in the palm of your hand or hold it in your head. Okay, so never in the history of the world did we have such a pure form of monetary energy. I think that if you want to characterize crypto universe, you have one thing, Bitcoin, which is the dominant $1 trillion crypto asset network. Bitcoin is a successful proof of work network that has created our first digital money. Bitcoin has done that. We can see that. There are no successful examples of a proof of stake network succeeding as digital property. And Bitcoin is this paradigm shift where we have digital money crashing into, I guess, what we'll call analog money, or maybe a political money is a better way to describe it. And now we start to ask the question again, what is money?
The only safe harbor for an institutional investor, if you wanted to invest in digital property, is Bitcoin.
Ideal money is a shared, immutable, correct ledger. You've heard the phrase, Bitcoin is a shared, immutable ledger, and people debate about whether it's truly immutable or not, but a crypto asset network, fully decentralized and mature, is the closest thing we can get to an immutable shared ledger in the history of the world. And so economists and politicians and investors, they all lack the right mental model to understand Bitcoin.
I don't think it's wise or even appropriate to be thinking about it being a threat to the government. I think that the right way to think of it is it's a threat to gold. It's going to eat gold.
And so what's going to happen is $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin is going to grow to be $10 trillion, and gold's going to return to its ornamental value as a source of jewelry and the like.
Blah, blah, blah.
if you know anything about tax, you know that when you move a currency around, you can't afford to incur a tax obligation. So if the IRS is going to tax you when you transfer $1 million of Bitcoin, then it makes it utterly impossible to use it as a currency. It's better, I mean, it's better than owning, you know, the center city blocks of the greatest cities in the world. This is like Manhattan in cyberspace. One day 1 billion people will live there, then one day 5 billion people will live there. So I'm telling you, 5 billion people are going to want to own property in cyberspace. There's only 21 city blocks. How long are they going to want to own that property? How about like 1,000 freaking years? If you think about it, you know, you've got pronouncements, you know, the president of Turkey says stuff about Bitcoin. People are asking the premier of Russia whether they'll accept Bitcoin. People want to know from central bankers what they think about Bitcoin. When's the last time somebody asked the government their opinion of Apple stock, or whether you should invest in gold or silver or any other stock, or options trading, or whether you should put your money in a, you know, money market? Nobody cares about any of those things. The only thing they care about is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is sucking the oxygen out of the room. And good news is good news, and bad news is good news. And as long as you keep talking about it, it's a good thing. So now you have the entire government, in essence, saying, it's just so good, we're a little bit afraid of it. And then you have people like the Ray Dalio saying, yeah, well, what's your problem with it? Well, it's just so perfect that I'm sure that somebody will want to stop it or ban it because it's too perfect. So if you're buying something which is potentially going to last hundreds of years, and there's nothing better on earth to buy, why would you ever sell it? It's not that you can't invest in a security, but the problem is, if it is a security, there's all sorts of questions about can you trade it and when, and it's unethical for a politician or a public figure to endorse a security. So there's all sorts of problems with them because they're not registered securities. I think that this is just part of the continual trend of companies adopting Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset. That the result is the Bitcoin network will shift to the West. It's a benefit and a windfall for the rest of the world. It's good for Africa. It's good for South America. It's great for North America. It's an opportunity for progressive miners. It's an opportunity for progressive politicians and political jurisdictions. Texas wants the mining. Why wouldn't you want the mining? This Bitcoin mining is the highest value and use of intermittent or stranded energy of any industry in the world. At the end of the day, there's 21 million Bitcoin. If $1 trillion is invested in Bitcoin, that tags Bitcoin at about $50,000 a coin. When someone buys another $1 trillion worth of it, the price is going up, and then the price is going up based upon the rate of monetary inflation because it's the safe haven. This is just technology. It's better technology. All you got to do is buy it and wait. Bitcoin is hope. Hope to fix your business, hope to fix your family balance sheet, hope to fix your country. If you want to preserve your wealth, you spread your bets around. But if you're gonna diversify in this environment, I think you want to diversify into scarce assets that cannot be devalued based upon currency expansion. So I think that as time goes by, there are just more and more ways to buy Bitcoin and buy instruments and financial products that are backed by Bitcoin. All of those are going to create more demand for the underlying asset. Bitcoin is a bank in cyberspace with no more than 21 million units. There is no property invented in the history of mankind that is better than Bitcoin. Because the macroeconomics are very favorable, right? We know we're going to continue to expand the money supply in dollars and euros and everywhere else in the world. The technology dynamics are very favorable. We keep improving Lightning apps, Square, Cash App, mobile apps. You've got these, like BlockFi's got a credit card and it gives you Bitcoin as 1.5% cash back. Call it Bitcoin back. So all those things are rolling out, and as those things roll out bit by bit, the entire asset class will just get more energy flowing into it. it's like, you know, if you could buy 50 blocks in Manhattan 200 years ago, there's no way you wouldn't have made money unless someone called your loan and liquidated you out and you had to sell at some time in the last 200 years. So you just want to have the staying power to stick around for the long term and let nature run its course. I feel that Bitcoin is like fire or electricity. You can't succeed in business, and by the way, you can't succeed in life if you don't actually create an asset portfolio of high quality assets that will appreciate in value faster than the rate at which the currency weakens. It took the human race 100,000 years to figure out fire. So like that was a slow thing. I think it took the human race 20 years to figure out electricity, or 30 years. I don't think Bitcoin will take 30 years. I think information's spreading faster, but maybe it takes another decade. So if a company adopts Bitcoin as its reserve asset, then the stock starts to be backed by the Bitcoin. So the best way to think about this transition is companies start to buy Bitcoin as their reserve asset, and then they have stocks that trade as derivatives of the Bitcoin. And then small countries buy Bitcoin, and then they have a currency backed as a derivative of the Bitcoin, and then larger countries. And over time, you would just think that Bitcoin becomes a larger and larger asset class. It goes from $1 trillion to 10 trillion to 100 trillion to 200 trillion. So I think this is just a continual thing. Will it go up at 110% a year for the next 10 years? I mean, at some point, presumably, its growth rate slows down as the law of large numbers kicks in, and it goes from growing 100% a year to 50% a year to 40% a year to 30% a year to 20% a year to 10% a year. But I do think it'll keep appreciating over a long enough time frame. And I think it'll appreciate faster than any other choice that I can come up with, right? So I take a long perspective. And in terms of where it can go, I mean, I look at the value of gold, you know, about $10 trillion of gold, and I don't see any reason why it doesn't flip that. And I look at 100 trillion in bonds, and I look at, you know, at the size of the global equity market, and I think 10, 20, 30% of that or more just wants to be in a store of value as a monetary index or just a property. So I think a portion of bonds, a portion of real estate, most of monetary gold, I mean a decent portion of gold, a decent portion of ETFs. When people are putting money in an ETF like the S&P index, they're kind of just trying to save their money. I see some numbers showing about 110 to 120% annual appreciation a year. And that's 10 times better than the S&P. So I think that's the best performing asset class. But depending upon what dates, if you pick a different 10-year date, you might get a different number. Bitcoin will continue to appreciate more aggressively than other asset classes because it's the technically superior property. Right, so this is the most successful thing ever unleashed in the history of humanity from an economic point of view. And pretty much the core principle of how you get rich or how you stay rich in the 21st century is you dematerialize something from the physical world to the digital world, and you make it smarter, faster, and stronger. No CEO, no board of directors, no product, no iPhone. There's no employees, so there's no one to unionize. You don't need an iPhone 12 to be competitive, because the product of Bitcoin is just a Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin just gives you 1/21 millionth of the network now, it's quite reasonable that 1/21 millionth of the network in 100 years is just as valuable, probably more valuable than one Bitcoin in 100 years is more valuable than one Bitcoin today. But you can see that one iPhone 3 today is worth nothing. And one iPhone 12 in 100 years will be worth nothing. So the product that Apple is selling isn't going to last 1,000 years. The product that Bitcoin is selling is 1/21 millionth of all the money in the world. That doesn't have to change, it just kind of has to not break. So what I liked about Bitcoin was it was a digital gold or a digital property that you couldn't inflate. And it was on a big tech network that you could accelerate using computer technology. So call it digital gold without all the imperfections of gold, but the big tech element meant that you could plug layer 2 and layer 3 applications into it, like Square Cash, Lightning, Apple Pay, Google Pay. And if I plug applications into the Bitcoin network, then I can create smarter, faster, stronger gold. There's nothing better to buy. There's nothing better to buy, right? I mean, I'll say it a third time. There's nothing better to buy. And if you're looking for a non-sovereign store of value between 1971 and the invention of Bitcoin, you could have gone to gold. I guess you could have used property, like land or commodities, timber rights, oil rights, something like that. And you could have used art. There's probably no one king, right? People dabble with is silver, a store of value. I think the free market went back and forth, but it's pretty clear that gold kind of died. It started dying, if not it died as a store of value about 10 years ago. what do people want? Do they want a job, or do they want to never have to work again? It's a paradigm shift, the first idea in 5,000 years. It's compressed air. It's electricity. It's hygienic running water. It's something new and different. If you don't understand it, then you should go and study it. You should study it because it is, in essence, strong money on a crypto network, and there's no reason it can't flip gold and go to 10 trillion and then replace most debt as a store of value and go to 100 trillion. And if it does, it's going up by a factor of 100. And if you miss it, it will be the greatest opportunity of your lifetime, and you will have missed it because you were too lazy to do the work. The only use of time is, how do I buy more Bitcoin? But take all your money, buy Bitcoin, then take all your time, figure out how to borrow more money to buy more Bitcoin, then take all your time and figure out what you can sell to buy Bitcoin. And if you absolutely love the thing that you don't want to sell it, go mortgage your house and buy Bitcoin with it. And if you've got a business that you love because your family works for the business that's in your family for 37 years, and you can't bear to sell it, mortgage it, finance it, and convert the proceeds into the hardest money on earth, which is Bitcoin. Right, the dollar weakened by enough to drive the stock indexes up by 38% this year instead of 10%, which is the average over 100 years. So what matters? What matters is when someone shows up with $20 billion and they want to buy Bitcoin, that matters. What happens, if Tesla buys 10 billion in Bitcoin instead of 1 billion or 1.5 billion? That matters. Is that in your model? No, it's not in the model because no one ever did it before this year.
Bitcoin transcends any company, any CEO, any country. It's spreading everywhere, and it truly is the most successful decentralized technology. Okay, again, give me an example of anything this scale that ever grew 400% a year. And in terms of inertia, the $1 trillion is $1 trillion of monetary energy. That means you've got more than 100 million people that have $1 trillion invested in this brand. This is the only brand in the history of the world. It's $1 trillion brand, right? It's like think about the value of Coca-Cola as the brand. In the minds of 100 million plus people, you have this idea and it's worth $1 trillion. How are you going to rip that idea out of people's heads?
What is the right focus and what is the right frequency? So in terms of making economic decisions, I think the right frequency is annually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years. Look at blocks of time like that. Looking at the frequency and the volatility and the returns or metrics on assets by the minute, by the hour, by the day, by the week or by the month, even by the quarter, are all kind of noisy. Likewise, I wouldn't look at 100,000 little minute assets. I would look at $1 trillion blocks. So there's $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin. It's up 582% over a year and 200% on average. Compound annual growth rate, 200% for a decade. Those are two numbers that are valuable. There's 10 trillion in gold. It's up 2% this year and 2% on average every year for a decade. Just stop right there. That's a big insight. You can measure 1 million statistics of Bitcoin and gold, every second. They don't matter. What matters is one thing is appreciating at 2% a year and the other is appreciating at 200% a year. And so if you really want to maximize your opportunity, you want to move as much of your liquid capital as close to Bitcoin or the Bitcoin network as possible, because it is this monetary network that's going from 1 trillion, and presumably it could be worth 100 trillion or more, because the sum total of all money in the world is maybe $400 trillion worth of stocks, real estate, bonds, and the like. Half of that is looking for a store of value, and the other half honestly, truly wants to be invested in stocks or bonds or real estate. We've lost price discovery in the financial universe. So the single most accretive way to use money or time is invest in Bitcoin, because you've got a once in a lifetime, once in 50 years, transformation where all of this $200 trillion of money sitting in analog fiat instruments is being encrypted and converted into a digital instrument, which is thermodynamically superior, right? That's the first observation. Time is money. Convert your money into Bitcoin or something as close to it as you can. And the second is time. Well, any time you're spending analyzing, it's like go to Venezuela, analyze every company, every piece of real estate, every bond index in Venezuela, and figure out which ones you want to invest in. And the answer, Angelo, is it's all a waste of time. So I wouldn't make my decisions based upon decisions that take place in China or India or Nigeria. I'd make my decisions based upon the prevailing view of the regulators and the society in the Western world. And I think that's come down very hard on one point. Bitcoin is property. Bitcoin is not currency. It is not a medium of exchange. The medium of exchange function is sitting with the fiat currencies, the euro and the dollar. The store of value function is migrated into property like gold, S&P 500 index, real estate, and Bitcoin, and other sorts of things you can own. And I think that's a very stable, logical development for the society. In nature, there's a flow from the energy flows from the weak to the strong.